And there we go. Welcome back once again, everybody. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I'm one of the lead developers behind Silmarillion Total War. Today, I'm going to be working a little bit more on the map that I was working on yesterday. As you can see, I've made some progress. So we've got a few new assets and stuff like that that will be on the build. These walls here in particular. I've got some new towers, got a little gatehouse here as well. You're going to be able to pass underneath the arches here and through this gate. So it's not just a really big, ugly natural choke point. Not trying to turn this into a big, scary siege battle. I would like this to be a fairly competitive cityscape kind of battle. And I don't think... at least my fond hope is that we're not going to run into a situation where this just becomes a siege map, because I don't want that to happen. So we're going to go out here. You can see there's quite a lot of ways into this area. And this is the passive Aglon. I don't know if I mentioned that already. I'm going to turn my music down ever so slightly. And we still have a lot to do, but like the inside here has 4 means of ingress. So you can go underneath these arches here, and you can go through the main gatehouse. And of course you can go through these 3 areas here. So it's not an insurmountable advantage. Actually, there's a lot of territory for defending armies to have to cover. And I haven't done anything with the outside of this yet, so we will look at some things to try and equalize it. I am a big believer in asymmetrical balance, and that you can still arrive at a place where things are fun and reasonably fair. It's not going to be fair. It's a war game. It's never always going to be fair, because the subject matter itself involves a lot of unfairness and trying to like put your enemies in a position where they are at a disadvantage. So, but with that being said, I hope that this map is at least tactical, interesting, necessitates thought and decision making from players, and rewards those 2 things as well. So there's one area through here, but of course this will take you directly into the center, into the heart of the defenders' defenses, and then of course you can use them against each other, but naturally it's a little bit harder to get into as it's a more direct route. These 2 areas here, you'll have to go through a couple different sets of choke points in order to push into here, and then that'll kind of dictate the way that that game ends up turning out, with the middle becoming a last stand area for the defenders instead of something that you can use aggressively to break their defense. By the time they get to that point, everything else is collapsed. But yeah, that central gate, I think it will be fairly important. Another little natural choke point here. Again, you can move underneath the archways. And there's 2 means of ingress, and this one is wide open, and there are nearby hills and stuff. So if you have people, up here, or I'll probably raise this up as well and like plateau it a little bit, so that there's like an area here that the defenders can put some like skirmish units, etc., etc. There will be some counterplay there, so you'll be able to just fire up at them, and they'll be fairly exposed being where they are. But yeah, one big means into the city there, and then there's a second one here that will potentially help you circumvent people that invest too heavily in the other choke point. And then the red line is over here, but I have added some stuff on the outside just to make it look a little bit more realistic. But it is a very large map. There's a lot going on here, a lot of like small miniature choke points. It will feel a little bit more like a cityscape once you manage to force your way in here. But I have tried to leave it fairly open so that there is room for like maneuvering, especially with cavalry. I think cavalry will be a really important thing to have once you get inside of the city here, because there's so many wide open spaces, right, and so many little nooks and crannies that you can potentially slip through with a swift unit of cavalry. But pushing in, it'll probably be a big ugly infantry fight. That's kind of my prediction. But yeah, over on this side, as the Sons of Feanor, at least in our mod, are a premier cavalry faction. I do have a lot of like pastures here, a lot of wide open spaces where they can potentially rear horses, let them run, and then of course there's farming. So the settlement itself is very expansive and a little bit self-sufficient as well. I'm just going to drop into chat here, see how you guys are doing. Let's give me a second here to try and figure this out. There we go. Are tunnels portals possible? If you roleplay a tunnel that goes underneath a wall and sort of just spits out units, like in the sense of like a Nidus canal for like StarCraft. As far as I know, that's not possible. Or grassy, yeah, it's looks kind of like grassy, at least the outside of it here. But it's a really large settlement. Like if we kind of zoom out here, you get a sense for how big it is. And there's like the more agrarian area over here on the left. The central area, I think, is a little bit more open, and then there's like a residential almost area over on this side, which I think is kind of cool. And then of course, you won't really be able to see beyond this, so I'm thinking that I might just leave it kind of open like that. But this is really intended to be sort of like the citadel, the main residence of the Sons of Feanor here. They live up in this big old tower and look over their dominion. Look upon their works, ye mighty in despair. But yeah, now we're going to move on to the outside, as there's a good deal of deployment zone here, and the defenders will have the option to deploy outside of it. And I'm expecting a lot of cav play here, so I do kind of want to leave it open, but I would also like to make it a bit more interesting as well. You may not be... I can see defenders wanting to stay more within inside of the fortress, even if it's not a good idea. It does make them feel a little bit safer and offers them some advantages. But I'm thinking that if for the purposes of scenarios as well, if we ever wanted to use this map, it might be a little bit more interesting to have some things happen on the outside as well. And so we're going to have some terrain there. There's a few directions that we can kind of go with it. But first, let's fill these little bits here in. There we go. Perfect. That's just so we can still kind of see more or less where the edges are. But I do want to fill this in on the center here. Good enough. So there's a couple of directions we can go. We can make it like hilly and like mountainous, kind of in keeping with like this settlement here. Or we can keep it relatively flat. We can add like some like orc camps and stuff out here. I do have a lot of orcish assets that might be kind of fun, like a double base dynamic sort of thing, and then everyone like kind of meets in the center. Although I don't know how I don't know if people would utilize that very well. I feel like someone like if I give people two different bases, someone's gonna want to stay inside because they feel safer and because choke points are a nice thing to have, etc., etc. So I think that if we have two, we'll kind of like you end up with a lot of stalemates. But if we have one base, then we kind of necessitate somebody has to attack, because you know not everyone has like battlements and stuff to try and like play around in. So what I think we'll do is we'll try and give the attackers some like advantages, I suppose, of their own. I think a good way to do that might be to find our little stake fortifications here. And we can kind of make it like a besieging army. Yeah, that's pretty far forward. And their deployment zone is probably going to end right about here, or maybe a little bit farther forward. So these stake fortifications here will kind of represent like a front line for the attacking armies. So we can have a couple of these here, and these can be used defensively. we go. Some kind of rough field fortifications. Those are, I think, in line. This one might be a little bit too far forward. It is, yeah. That'll do. And we'll smooth it out too. We're not gonna just leave it in that rough state. We're gonna smooth it out. Make it look all nice. I'll put our fortification. Let's make this one just slightly larger. Like wider between the two. Do that. Make it a little bit wider. And there's lots of like wide open space between here and there too. And so I think we'll still see a decent amount of like cav play and like cav fights out in the field. That's my hope. There we go. And then farther back from the front, near the back, what we're going to do, I'll save it there real fast. I don't know. I'll leave this one up to you guys. Just do a war camp with tents. Yeah, I was thinking about war camps with tents and stuff. Yes, because we're using, just in response to your question there, just saying 83, we will be using some of like WK's settlements, and they do include treehouse pathways that can be used defensively. I'm not necessarily going to be using that on this map, but that is something that we will have access to, and we'll be using like a variety of different settlements. We'll have his new elven settlements, but we'll also have the older ones too. Kind of spice it up a little bit. Because most of our settlements will end up being elven settlements, as most of the factions in the game are elves. So, yeah, we need a little variety there. So I think we'll have about 7 or so elven maps in total. They're like prefabricated. Let's do that. But yeah, I can make an orc camp here. Like, I can make a pretty damn cool orc camp out of all of this. But it's like, it won't have like fortifications. It'll just be like buildings and stuff like here. It'll mostly be like flavor buildings. It won't be anything like what the defenders have in there. Or I can just do a generic camp. I'll give you about 30 seconds to decide, and then I'm just gonna make a decision for you. This will probably be under ambient. There they are. Did the elves farm? I mean, I wonder how else they might have fed themselves. They certainly had a booming population during the first age, so without agriculture, you can't really support a large population. Oh, I do have some farms. I have farms over there on like the Elven side here. I'll quickly just zip over there and show you. You can probably see them in the distance over there. There's a big farm. There's some wide open areas for the Sons of Feanor to rear their horses. But yeah, there's a big stretch of farms right there. In the first stage, the orcs were certainly always the attackers, just because Stengoradrim was essentially an unassailable fortress. But maybe we'll just do like a generic camp here. Because I didn't really get a definitive answer. That's okay. Let's do a big one. Up. I'm having a crazy thought. It's a real crazy thought. My thought is that I abandon this camp dynamic entirely. And we're on something a little bit more, I guess, less gamey. And I just do a little bit of like natural beauty and stuff on the outside here. It's okay. We'll leave the hills. We can smooth those out into something a little bit more reasonable. But why don't we trace ourselves a little river here? I'll make myself a lake. We'll crank that up just for the purposes of quickly doing this. And we'll sink all that below. We could have... that's too far. There we go. We'll have a little crossing there, a little aquatic crossing. We can have one there, and the river can kind of just flow down this way. We can separate one of those armies, which makes sallying kind of attractive, since you'll have one force here that's a little bit isolated. We'll add lots of like areas on and off here, but I like to kind of spice it up a little bit. And we're going to smooth all this out too, so it's not going to be big and ugly. Make this lake-sized. I'll leave a little island in the center there. Even raise a second one. We'll smooth all that out in a minute. There we go. On this side we'll have that river. I'm going to turn this down a bit. Actually, the smooth tool is actually sometimes really useful for this. Sometimes it like... yeah, this is one of those times. But sometimes it will like help you widen it, other times it will just screw it up. Oops. And we'll hide this behind like some forest and some other stuff. It'd be like another tributary out here. That's kind of funny. It looks like a Wi-Fi symbol. We got 2 bars out here in Middle Earth. It's better than I expected we'd get. We'll widen this a bit. And we'll smooth out the banks so they're more like banks and less like sudden precipitous drop-offs. Alright, we'll put an actual river crossing in there instead of just having a land bridge, because I think the land bridges look kind of funny. It's like, oh yeah, the river just suddenly stops there and doesn't overflow, and then the other half of the river just keeps on going. It's fine. It's totally reasonable. That's how nature works. That's not true at all. Oop. Just run it over. Basically in the center. It widens it to an acceptable river-esque width. I kind of like that hill there, so we'll smooth that out. Keep saving that. Yeah, see, there we go. Widens it a little bit. Run the smooth tool just a little. Just makes it less jagged. Like, you definitely notice it in game when someone doesn't run the smooth tool over the rivers, because you get stuff like this. These little, like, outcroppings of like land, and you're like, well, that looks artificial. Whereas with the smooth tool, you get kind of like nice, like, smooth lines on your banks, and it looks a little bit more like there's flowing water in there. Just a little detail that always bugs me. Doesn't matter if we do it out here, because you'll never see this. Like, you'll probably not see it up close. And normally I don't shy away from the small details that most people won't notice, but you will, like, literally not see this when I'm done with it, so it won't really matter that much what the banks look like, because you won't be able to get close enough to them in game to actually see a difference. Some nice Elven irrigation systems. Did the orcs attack the passive Aglon often? I believe they did on several occasions, but I'm a little bit rusty on it. You know, I shouldn't be, because I've, like, listened to audiobooks and, like, reread the Silmarillion a lot over the course of working on Silmarillion Total War. But, you know, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that they did attack it on a number of occasions, and they attacked it in force. And eventually, I think during the Dagor Bragollach is when it was lost to the Sons of Feanor, and they would later retake it with reinforcements from Himring. But Dagor Bragollach was kind of a game changer, and from there the elves were on the defensive, whereas previously they had Morgoth bottled up inside of Thangorodrim. But the advent of dragons really did kind of change things a lot for them, and, like, the amount of devastation suffered during the Dagor Bragollach, which nobody saw coming, hence the name the Battle of Sudden Flame. Yeah, it really shook things up. I need the texture tool, and we need to go here, and we're gonna do that. Now it looks good. Yeah, and it's kind of like this. So normally when you're working on maps like this, if you fence a lot of things off behind, like, water or, like, impassable barriers, it will screw up your deployment zones. So you end up with, like, deployment zones that are like a tiny triangle in the corner, and it just doesn't end up working out very well from a practical standpoint. And one thing you can do to stop that is to break up the continuous, like, barrier posed by a river or whatever it happens to be that's causing the issue. So what we're going to do, there's a few things we can do. The places closest to the elves, we are going to put bridges on, because that's closest to civilization, and I think that makes sense. I just need to find... We're going to use the biggest ones that we have. Stone bridges, just like that. And we'll fix this in a second. And we'll do a couple of like major bridges here, because these are like, these lead to the Elven like district essentially, so they would have a couple of these, I would think. And you always want to be a little bit careful with bridges. Sometimes they can be kind of like irritating in game. So I don't tend to use them often, but I think here, like logically, it makes sense that the most direct route and the closest route to the Elven settlement would be stone bridges, would be like civilized. There we go. And we'll put another 2 additional bridges over here. Spice this up a bit. We can just do 1 here. Maybe we'll just do 2 bridges. I think 3 is a little bit excessive. And then we'll smooth things out a bit, because we really messed it up a little bit. Which tends to happen when you place down objects like this. They kind of have like a zone around them that will like have a preset elevation for the terrain, which is kind of irritating. Make this more of an actual river. If it was just that close, then you could just walk across it, couldn't you? Why would you bother with bridges? And then over here, we'll have large fords. Oops. I'm never sure which way these are supposed to go, because I don't use them very often. But I think if you have them just enough in the river, you get like the river kind of effect. That should work. And if it doesn't, I'll fix it later, because I always test these before I release them. Widen it a little bit here. There we go. And then we'll do a smaller crossing. Let's Gilead Ambient. Nope, we're not playing with that. That'll ruin my whole map. And we'll do a smaller ford, maybe? I don't think we'll be able to get one with the right angle. Maybe. So I think we'll be a bit silly. We'll make it a little bit weird, and we'll just do like a raised like bridge here, like a land bridge. I think that makes the most sense, just because I can't get an object, because they have certain angles that you can put them down at, and I can't really get the angle that I need. So this is more of a necessity. I wish I could do it a different way. See what chat's up to. Sling bit wider to prevent movement confusion and blobbing up your units. Lower the bridges and make them shorter. No, I think that they're at a decent level. That's fine for the bridge, I think. What we can do, be a bit careful with this, so I don't sink the whole damn thing into the river. So we'll try and get it a bit closer. Oops. Oh, guess we can't get it too much closer than that. And then we can put down some like rocks and stuff to make it look kind of bridge-like, or like it's like part of the riverbed. Maybe it's been like dammed up or something. There's a bunch of like weird ass rocks in here and stuff that we can deploy. Ruined wall. Hopefully none of these rocks are floating. Well, these ones are kind of floating. There we go. There you go. That's pretty good, I think. Widen this a bit. Smooth that out somewhat. I think that that's pretty good. There are 4 ways on and off of that island. Ways for allies to easily come and help. And some slightly more difficult ways for enemies to get over there. Now let's play this a little bit. And make it look sort of like it's like a natural area. It's a little bit hilly. We are kind of like leading up to a pass through a mountain range, which you can sort of see away in the background there. So be a little bit like rocky. Not completely flat. There we go. We'll lower some of the areas as well, and raise some areas in the center. Gives it that like broken, like almost pockmarked kind of look to it. Imagine April 1st when he releases a Gondolin map, which is just a black screen because Gondolin is hidden. That's a good idea. No, I'd probably release some like Gondolin maps, like memes or something. I like that idea though. That's clever. Feanor is Rohan and Imladris if they had a son. I would like to think that they are their own faction and they stand on their own merits and aren't necessarily the same thing that you can simply understand by proxy to something you already know. But I totally understand why people want to think of it in that way, and I can see the similarities there. So I guess fair enough. Just 1 sec. My cat needs to be let out. My apologies. I am back. There we go. Now we can. What's our smooth tool at? 7. That's probably enough. Can comfortably smooth some of these out without being too concerned about it losing too much height really quickly. And just run them over there in like circles. I find that's pretty helpful. And I usually run it stronger, or at least for longer, over the base of hills than I do over the top. Just so it kind of stays, the crest of your hill stay like big and large. And it helps give it a kind of like, just looks like a hill, I guess. Ooh, I like that. I like that little tree on top of there. That's cool. I'm going to try and preserve that if we can. Let's get it to be slightly less peak-like. Yeah, that's acceptable. There we go. It's kind of like rocky and bumpy, and it just feels like a kind of like rivery, marshy area. Now we can go to the texture tool. Uh-oh, that's not good. Sometimes it likes to bug out, so what we're going to do is just reload it. There we go. Now we'll go to our texture tool and things will be more or less normal. What do I think will look good here? Scrub. So terrain carries certain bonuses and penalties and stuff in Silmarillion Total War. So it is good if you ever want to get into this and start like making maps of your own and stuff. If you give things a little bit of consideration in that regard. So you're like, scrub things. Well, what kind of units have scrub bonuses? Well, when are they going to use those? Would it be useful if I put them here? Is it more of a hindrance than a help? Etc., etc. But on top of that, a lot of these terrain types have movement speed penalties. Mud and swamp, I believe, have the highest ones. And they also have some, like, I think they have, like, melee defense penalties, but I could be wrong about that. So muddy and swampy areas take a long time for people to traverse through. So you don't want to put those everywhere. If you made like a grassy plains out of mud, for example, just to be sadistic and evil, I would probably high-five you, because I think that would be hilarious. But it's also not really good for gameplay, so that's something you have to kind of bear in mind. This is oddly relaxing to watch. That's kind of what I'm going for. Kind of like a Bob Ross experience, I guess. But let's see here. We're going to go with this dense scrub, because, nope, that's too dark. And we are going to do some of that, like, dense scrub, because it looks like it has a little bit of mud. So I think what we'll do is we'll, like, I want to turn down the tool for starters, but... And if you, like, turn down your tool, some textures blend really well together. So you can end up making, like, a nice kind of, like, mix of of different textures all together, which I think looks really cool. And you can sort of see it a little bit here, how it's, like, it's a lot harder over here, and you can almost see, like, lines and stuff, but here it's a lot more, like, nicely blended. So, like, you don't really notice it as much. But I kind of like this, like, darker, like, muddy-looking color here, just around the riverbeds, just because I think that makes kind of sense, right? There we go. We'll do that along the rivers as well. We'll do it with a smaller brush. Right here. And you get that kind of blend, and it just looks really good together. And you'll get a sense of, like, what looks really nice, kind of when you put them alongside each other, and what things are maybe a little bit too stark to be plausible. There we go. And we'll do it over here too. And this is purely aesthetic so far, but I am going to put some more scrub and stuff outside. There's a lot of units that get bonus in scrub terrain, so I think that that's something that would be nice for an attacking army to have, is a little bit of a boost there. The Sons of Feanor also, many of their infantry units get bonuses in scrub terrain as well. So as this is their home turf, they will benefit from that as well. Pardon me. And I'm only going to put the scrub outside of the city, which is like part of an incentive to maybe make people come outside and attack every now and again. because they know that they'll be getting those bonuses outside. So there's a good reason to do so. And of course, not every attacking force is going to have units that directly benefit from it too, benefit from scrub terrain as well. So there's decisions to be made there for players that are being cognizant of our terrain bonuses and sort of the dynamic there. And save. That's maybe a little bit too stark. That's a bit better. I like that. Chest map. Chest map on Reforge became Mudland. Oh yeah, that's because for the Reforge campaign, WK worked on a lot of settlements, and he had to put the settlements into the game. And a lot of things in the game are tied to culture, and so when culture gets changed, everything gets changed, and the map got changed as well. So coordinates on the map are kind of important, and they're going to determine like terrain on the map. If you like randomly generate a map and you pick coordinates off the map in the battle editor, then you're going to get that. So that's where a lot of those like random crazy like shifts in terrain come from. It's just a function of the overhaul that WK did, and there's a lot of bugs that had to be worked out of that. But I think that they've done a lot to kind of make that better. I know that was one of the things that I was doing when I was still working on Reforged on 0.97, is that, or was it 0.97.1? I don't know, something like that. Is that we had to go through as many of the maps as we could and find those problems and fix them so that it wasn't an issue for you guys. And I did a quick run through. I did it on most of the popular maps because we were on a deadline at that point. And it worked out okay, I think. But obviously there was some stuff that got left behind. I wasn't aware that chess map was that savagely affected, but then I've never actually really had any desire to play on the chess map, so maybe that's a similar situation for some of the other devs and they just didn't see it. It happens. So you get used to unintended consequences in modding. It's just par for the course, really. There we go. I think that looks kind of cool. That's a good start, eh? From there, let's do sort of like a dense scrub. We'll run it in like semicircles here. We'll kind of like run it over top of here, over top of our hills and stuff. And place that sort of logically. That's a little bit too hard. And that changes it too much, and I don't quite like that. So let's turn down the tool. 2's probably too low. 4 might be perfect. I think that's just how this one is going to end up looking. It just doesn't blend very well into other things, which, you know, is okay. We'll put some trees and stuff on these hills. Now, you can't actually hide in this. It does add a little bit of character, I think, to it. We'll do it kind of like around the trees there, so the trees have like green grass and stuff that they grow into. And I'll put some trees on top of that too. Okay, I think I'm getting an idea of how to like blend this reasonably well. It just turns the grass a little bit darker before it really starts to put down that like like thick forest floor texture, so we can just do that hard over the top of the hill, and then just kind of like click around it a little bit, like darken the area. You can get like a nice like kind of blend, and then we'll put trees over top so you won't even notice it. So it'll look a little bit more integrated, I think. I want the vegetation tool. Hell yeah, I do. Some nice thick growth on the top there, on top of that head. There we go. Look at the little chia pets. I'll put a whole bunch on top of here too. You want to be careful with how long you hold your trees and how many you place all at once, because it is pretty prone to causing a lot of crashes. So being extra careful here. There we go. Got those little copses of trees, and then we'll remove a lot of the other stray trees as well. Not all of them, because I like the way that some of them are right now. And over here, it's pretty okay. But now I think we need some big old rocks, especially right here. Nope, maybe that's too many. There we go. And that's just more of a visual marker, I guess, that kind of shows you where that is. And let's also put some of this scrub in there. Just darken it a bit so it looks more like it's kind of wet. We'll also make sure we got the right rock. One might be okay. No, because that gets rid of everything. I think this one blends a bit better. I was mistaken. I think just dirt might be okay. No? No, that's alright. That looks good as it is. And now let's do... we'll do short grass out here. It's like a plain... you know, be feeding a lot of horses out here. Maybe short grass will be alright. That'll kind of be like the areas in between the hills will be all short grass. And we'll leave little patches of green here and there. So it doesn't look super flat. That's one of the things that I think, I've certainly done this before, and I've certainly seen other people do it, is that they just go ham on the texture tool and just do everything in like one texture, and then they'll do like one texture right beside it, and there's like hard lines between things, and it just doesn't seem like it has depth to it. It just looks flat, which I think is weird. So for example, we're gonna leave that there so it like kind of bleeds in. And it's not just like hard lines. Let's do this. Go along the riverbed here. We'll leave this little like... oops. I don't want to go too far up there. Leave a little margin, and then we'll fill in some of this with dirt too. And it'll look, I think, pretty decent. Not understanding how the river is dammed yet not overflowing and the other side is full. I know, it's silly. The only reason that that is the case is because I didn't have a river crossing like the one I did here that's more natural, that faced the direction that I needed it to face. It was like on a weird angle, and then I would have had to like redraw the whole river. So I've just done this, and I've tried to make it look like a riverbed. And that's just how that's going to have to be. I ain't happy about it either. That'll do. And we could have this one like green hill here that doesn't have a whole lot of stuff on it. Ah, there's the crash. Of course. Don't worry, I'll get us back online. It won't take me very long. Is this supposed to be Beleriand? Yes. So the map I'm working on here is an approximate, I would say, facsimile of the Pass of Aglon. So there's going to be a very sprawling, I won't call it a metropolis, but it is certainly an elven village that's spread out throughout a mountainous kind of hilly area in the back. But it's also very clearly been cultivated. So we'll take a look at it here. You can kind of see the elven settlement. There's walls here and there. There's a very obvious and distinct kind of like front line that you pass through in order to get into the outlying settlements here. And they've like made a cultivated area in behind so they can feed themselves. And there's houses and camps and inns and all kinds of stuff that are sort of signs of civilization. The little village out here. And I could add more to make it look a little bit more densely packed, but again, people have to play on this, and they're usually playing on huge unit sizes. So it's large and open like this, mostly as a matter of necessity. That's just kind of how it has to be, otherwise people won't be able to play on the map effectively, and it just becomes a big ol' like choke point grind from start to finish, and I don't want that to be the case. So having open space like this does kind of leave more gameplay options open for people, and then it'll be a little bit more open out here on the outside too, but we're kind of just slowly working our way over there. And we're going to add some more terrain and some things like that, and we'll add like a hilly area out in here. Yeah, I'm just kind of playing it by ear a little bit right now. How much are we charging for rent in Beleriand? You know what? I imagine rent in Beleriand is probably quite reasonable because of the constant existential threat of literal Satan in the north, like the shittiest neighbor you can possibly think of. Loud, rowdy orc parties at all hours of the evening. I imagine that drives property prices down quite a lot. I think I was doing shortgrass. I think I had you. No, I definitely had you. That would make sense given some of the lines we were drawing. There we go. And we'll fill in some of the areas of dirt too. And they all kind of like blend quite nicely together. Grass and the dirt textures and stuff, from what I recall. There we go. Let's trace kind of the outlines of these hills here. And then we'll do we'll fill in the kind of the green space between the hill and the texture we're laying down, the short grass, with some other stuff too, and it should look like a nice, more or less natural landscape. There we go. Now let's try the dirt texture and we'll see where that gets us. There we go. Oops. I do want the green areas to be kind of the minority in this little neighborhood, in our little texture neighborhood. Yeah, it's not quite as cultivated in this region as it is gonna be closer to the Elven city. There we go. Don't want to have too many like very strong, obvious patches of green because they just looks weird and gross. This is, I think, a little bit more reasonable. Oh yeah, Rex's infamously broken P key. It never gets old, really. And we'll go over here and we'll do that dense scrub that we had earlier. Get nice and dark here around the riverbed. We'll do that kind of on the other side here as well. Some more short grass over here. Get a bit closer. Leave a nice green area around this little thingamadig. Tree, even. There we go. We'll come back and we'll finish that area, but we should probably finish filling all this in first. Alrighty. We'll fill in this area over here too. Actually, I kind of feel like the short grass and the dirt textures almost look identical to one another. So maybe I'll just continue using that because I don't really notice a difference. Like if I look at this, I can't really tell what's what. I can't tell where I've gone over with like the other one versus where I've gone over with this particular texture type. So. I find that this just kind of blends with the grass a little bit better anyway. It doesn't like apply quite as aggressively. Oh no, it crashed. Okay. There we go. We'll just jump back into it. Alright. I don't suppose you guys can hear my music at all. Am I the only person who's able to enjoy this? I never seem to get an answer to that question whenever I ask. Short grass. Oh, that's too big. Oh, 7 or 8 is probably okay. Oh yeah, now I gotta go back over all this. I need a tiny, tiny little brush in here. Try and blend that reasonably well. My best. There we go, it looks rivery. Not so much up here though. Let's save that. Jordan just put on death metal. You can't hear my music. Well, let me see if I can fix that. There you go. That'll definitely get me hit with one of those copyright claims, but honestly, who cares? Alright, now let's put down some vegetation. There we go. It's a nice little rivery area. Sorry, Rex, that's not death metal. I do like death metal, but I don't like to make maps to death metal. I always find some like chill lo-fi stuff just kind of helps me concentrate. Helps me keep an even keel. I think that'll do. It's vegetation. I want... What do I want? A small shrub is the one that works. Now, there's a few in here that just don't work at all, which is kind of confusing. What are we saying here? Play anime music in the background. I mean, I could. There's a few animes that I enjoy. A friend of mine actually, it's a guilty pleasure of mine because I know that it is objectively not a quality show and has a lot of like kind of irritating anime tropes, I guess. But Black Clover, I've been enjoying quite a lot, even though it's basically fucking Naruto. It's Naruto with a different setting. Oh. Gotta be careful here because your shrubs will replace your trees. They kind of count as trees, so you have to show the same caution and restraint. Because A, they can crash, and B, they'll replace some of your other shrub stuff. But obviously you still want to get a nice spread of them, so just gotta take your time with it. Yeah, that's alright. And that'll do, I think. We could put one final touch here and do some of that. A bit of forest here. Like actual factual forest. So you can hide units in these particular areas. No, I crashed. Ah, well, it happens. It certainly happened a lot in the last 20 minutes. Wish we'd give it a rest. You watch hentai for the plot, of course. I mean, yeah. What else do you watch hentai for? It's the same friggin' plot. Usually involves tentacles. But yeah, we're there for the plot. You got it. Get car insurance for the crash, you know? Not a bad idea. There's some sort of equivalent of Geico for map editors for 12-year-old games. I would like to purchase a subscription, please. And we use dense forest. Turn that down slightly. Yeah, I learned the hard way. Trying to make ambush spots that it's tied to terrain and has nothing to do with the presence of trees. Presence or absence of trees, I should say. It's all about whether you put down a specific piece of tile. Well, there we go. I'm pretty happy with that area. We can probably move on now to the next thing. And if something comes to mind, I can always come back and put some finishing touches on it later. I think I said I wanted hills, didn't I? Hell yeah, I do. Let's see what chat's up to. You're just a filthy orc. That's okay. We accept all types in this chat. I'm here for the bullet. I know that he's from Quebec, and occasionally you just see it come out when he types things. That's a cool little area over there. I quite like that. Let's see. What kind of hills do we want here? Ooh, there's a mosquito in my room. He's bitten me a few damn times. I'll have some hills there. There we go. That's kind of hilly. Let's see. There we go. And it'll be like a small military encampment here in the hills. Not so much that it takes up a ton of space that can be used for playing, but there will definitely be a minor camp here. I'm going to take a medium one. We'll put it out this way. It'll be kind of like there's paths and stuff leading to it. Like we'll integrate it so that it looks like there's like paths, so it looks like armies marched out of those camps. And came over this way. Pick a fight with the elves. That's neat. I like that. No, those actually look fine as they are. We're going to put lots of scrub terrain in here too. And scrub, and we'll put some rock on the peaks, like the very tops of the hills in certain areas. There you go. And this will be like the one hill that kind of towers above the rest of them. That won't be like something that you can use. It'll just be there as an obstruction instead of something that you can play around, like this area over here. JmonsterTW, I should stream a reading session of Lord of the Rings. Because he hasn't read the books yet. I mean, if people wanted to hear me narrate something, I could totally read Lord of the Rings to you guys. I mean, obviously, I have a proclivity for voice acting and stuff, so I can even do some of the voices if you like. That's what I do for my nephews. I don't know if everyone wants me to do that, you know, on the channel, but like, yeah, I can definitely do that. Do a few chapters here and there. That might actually be kind of fun. There we go. Now we'll use our texture tool and we'll do the tops of this area first. We're going to use, I think this dense scrub is probably okay. No, that's 2. Yeah, this one's a little bit more, I think, less overtly foresty looking. It's kind of my issue with the other one. That's probably too much. Go. Make sure we get the other sides too. It's like brushing your teeth. You gotta do both sides. Let's see here. What else am I missing in chat? No, it looks like I'm pretty caught up here. Good, good, good. Pardon me. I got my crash senses tingling. Give me a second here. Just gonna link my stream real fast. Alrighty. That looks pretty decent, I think. Nice, like, hilly area to fight in. I'm gonna do the same kind of thing for over here. I'm gonna turn it up, turn it up ever so slightly. There we go. go. Now the hills look sufficiently scrubby. And let's take the rock texture. Make sure we get the right one. I think it's... this was the good one. Yeah. That might... yeah, that'll do that. I don't want to do that. I changed my mind. Let's go back to our dense scrub. Ah! I got the damn mosquito. There we go. We'll give the whole area just kind of that treatment here. That's too much. It creates like too much of like an obvious line. It's like scrub terrain starts here. Might as well put up a big ugly sign. There we go. At least kind of blends a bit better. It's not just stop and start. There we go. I'll just pick something nice out of my list here. That was a little bit too lovey-dovey for me, I think. There we are. It actually blends quite nicely with the grass terrain. I'm quite happy about that. There we go. It's like the enemy's kind of dug in the hills here. I mean, maybe I'll put down a third encampment. And put down like a watchtower or something. I think that would look decent in here. But for the meantime, let's set about making the rest of this kind of like scrub terrain. Try not to go over the same area twice, because otherwise it's harder than the area around it, and it looks kind of weird. No, I crashed. That's okay. We saved just before that, so it's alright. Damn it, Steam. There we go. Be back in a sec. You'll just have to suffer through a brief black screen. I'm so sorry. Phallus is the non-AP halberds. People like to call our two-handed spears halberds, and I feel like people should stop doing that, because everyone seems to be very confused. We have two different weapon templates in the game. One is for two-handed spears, the other are for halberds. And they both, because of like the traits and like the way that they end up like playing in game, they are used for different things. So two-handed spears, great for holding the line. Obviously they get the spear wall thing. But they tend to have less damage, but more melee defense than a halberd. They have the piercing damage type, which is a really big difference. Because piercing versus slashing has the advantage in that kind of matchup. In that the piercing unit will take like a hit to their melee defense. So spears are all great at all that kind of stuff. They've got the range of halberds, which is maybe where some of the confusion comes in, as those two units have identical attack range. But Halberds have slashing, they've got higher damage, they've got melee defense penalties, but they have, like, you know, greater base damage as a result. So they end up being used for different things. Halberds are great at, like, blending infantry, for example. And spears are good at just, like, holding a line. They're obviously much more powerful against cavalry as well. So there's a big difference there. So I think that maybe that distinction is getting lost when people call the non-AP halberds, because there's all those other things that are entailed being a halberd that that a two-handed spear just doesn't have. So there's a difference. Can't see, but I'm shaking my finger at you right now. I think this is the dense scrub we are using. Let's switch up the music a little bit. There we go. We'll make scrub kind of the dominant thing on this, so we'll slow down the infantry fight a little bit out here in kind of like the wilder area. But then once you get inside, things will move at a normal pace, and that's when you are going to want to be quick anyway. Go. And what I like here that we've kind of kept open is that there are some areas that are just the long grass, so none of the movement penalty or like damage bonuses and stuff that go right to these little camps. And usually these are situated at like entrances, important entrances to this hilly area. So like around the back here, there's less scrub. Through the center here, there's less. So have to work on blending it properly so it looks reasonable. Will there be a standout pike unit in Silmarillion? I mean, there are barely any pikes at all, so can we have one showstopper pike unit? I'm not sure what you're asking me for there. It sounds like maybe you want me to have a pike unit that's just like an utter meat grinder and just murders everyone, which I don't want to have for reasons I think would be fairly obvious, in that we would have a pike unit that's a meat grinder and slaughters everybody. Where does that leave the spears of Gelion? Don't they have the same range as halberds? Yes, they are two-handed spears, so they have all those things that we had earlier. But to follow up on your question there, Dustin, we'll have a few different pikes, and they will be good at, I suppose, different things. Well, no, they'll all be pike units, so they'll have that like kind of baseline in common and like the large attack range and stuff. But we have some medium pikes, we have some elite pikes, we have some mid-tier heavy pikes, we've got some elite heavy pikes, which is really kind of what the Nargothrond ones are. Yeah, we just have a lot of different things that, and like their performance is kind of more of a function of tier and training and numbers and all that kind of stuff, rather than just being like, well, we want to have a show-stopping unit, so it has to be strong. There are reasons for why things are strong, and they're going to be good at certain things, and maybe they won't be as good at other things. I might even have a shielded pike. It's possible. I'm playing with it in my head, whether or not I actually want to do that. Whether or not that would be just like hideously broken, I don't know. But I guess the answer to the question is maybe, but I won't add it just for the purpose of being like a powerful pike unit, that sort of thing. I don't like to have things that are just absolutely 100% the best. I like to have like checks and balances and stuff that kind of mitigate that. So for example, the Sons of Feanor Knights are like I would put them as like being the best cavalry in the game, but because of how low in number they are, etc., etc., that unit can be shut down. It's not impossible. Can pretty frequently happen that it can get quite badly damaged by units less expensive than they are and more numerous. So when you say a show-stopping pike unit, that's sort of how I interpret that, and that's not necessarily something that I would want to have. Have a unit that just like runs rampant and is just like utterly the best at what it does all the time, and nothing else can touch it. 10 HP Imladder sentries, please. Bring them through a portal. Yeah, alright. Quickly save there. There we go. I think that's okay. I said I'd add an extra camp. I think that's under ambient. A little small encampment out here. Take the vegetation tool and get rid of some of these trees. Though I do like the way some of them are right now. Would also like to put some trees up here on the tops of these hills. I think it just looks good. Little copses of trees here. Adds a little bit of life to the campaign map. Or the campaign map, to the battle map. There we go. I kind of like that. There we go. I kind of like that. I kind of like this little like wall of hills that we've got here. Almost like little passes and stuff. Kind of ominous that you have to go through. We'll add a little bit of dirt to these areas as well. Kind of make it look like people trod through there on a regular basis. Get that dirt texture. There we go. It's kind of like there's a big path in there, like armies have trod through. I think that tool's a little bit too hard. I'll turn that down. There we go. Go ahead and save there. Did I see your dwarf idea? Yes, I did see it on Discord. I haven't really had a chance to get back to you about it, but I am kind of like thinking about it and thinking about like some implementations and stuff. Obviously, I don't want Like, given what I talked about... Ah, crap. God, I hate that. Given what I talked about on stream yesterday, I don't necessarily want to just, like, give them a ton of mobility. The dwarves, that is. I think that having them be heavily armored and not necessarily, like, slower, but, like, slower than other factions can be in the sense that, like, our various infantry types, heavy, medium, light, all have different movement speeds inherent to them. And then some other factions have they go a little bit beyond that. So when it comes to movement speed, I like to err on the side of things being a bit higher. But since the dwarves will have so much heavy infantry, they'll all be moving at 1.05 speed, whereas other factions will have their light infantry moving at like 1.1. Some of the Philothrum, I think, have like 1.15, which is very, very swift. Things like that. So that's kind of where the slowdown will come with the dwarves. So it's not necessarily the case that they're going to need a ton of mobility because they'll be so much slower than everybody else. They will just be slower on average because they have so much heavy infantry, which is necessarily slower than other unit types or like other classifications of infantry that they don't have access to. And then they won't have cavalry as well, so that'll limit their mobility a little bit that way. Whether or not that's something that needs to be compensated for, I guess kind of remains to be seen. But at the moment, I'm fine with them being slower as long as they still have lots to do and like decisions to make and like things to click and micro to employ. Yeah, we'll see how that works out. Can always change in time. Where was I? Dirt. I was playing in the dirt. And we'll take this little guy. Just kind of run him over the sides there. And it kind of makes things look a little bit less like I've been playing around with a texture tool. And more like they kind of belong there. That's kind of neat. That's so pretty. This nice little camp here that's going to go towards this little kind of dirty area. I'm going to fill in some of that green. Save that real fast. And the same for here too. There we go. It's sort of like people have been walking through here and like reinforcing like fronts and stuff. They've maybe cleared some of that undergrowth. I'll take this and run it over like so. Makes it look a little bit better, I think. I'll save here, and we'll have one other. Connect these two camps. And that same thing with that single brush. You can run it either right across or sometimes in like circles, I think is what makes it look good. There you go. That's kind of neat. And now I think in here we can maybe put some like ruins and stuff. Things that like indicate that maybe there was like an elven settlement or some stuff out here, but they've since been knocked down by the invaders. No, I don't want to ruin my hills too much. There we go. Put that down. Looks pretty decent. Put that there. Pop a few stakes down. Oh, those are facing the wrong direction. There we go. Looks kind of fortified that way. And then let's see here. I need a little watchtower. No, I don't want those. A little crude watchtower just there in the center. That's kind of neat. That one right over there adds a little bit of character. Also, a thing to keep in mind is that these rocks will stop people from moving through them, so you don't want to be too liberal with them. But they can certainly help things look... Whoa. Them some big rocks. We're going to have to push those down a bit. That's okay. You won't see those shadows in game. They'll just be below the surface. There we go. We won't go too crazy with them. Maybe do one more over here. Let's see how we're doing here. No, Jordan, get it out of your mouth. Don't eat that. Yeah, okay. Outside. Outside what? There we go. I'm quite pleased with this. We can also put in some more ruins here, just to make it look kind of weird in the center. Where's Amon Hen? I could definitely put Amon Hen somewhere, because I don't think... Oh, that's going to cause a crash. That should look okay. No, it's definitely floating. There we go. That should look okay. You know, I kind of don't mind that. I kind of like that look. That's probably more or less the look I would have gone for with the trees anyway. And at least everything over here is more or less untouched, which is what I wanted. Well, that's kind of a happy accident, I suppose. And it kept those things off of all of our roads and such, which looks good. So all that is still cleared. It's like a cool little encampment in the woods. And it's not like an obscene amount of trees either, which is good. Which means that crashing should hopefully not be an issue on this map. I'm pretty pleased with that, if I'm being completely honest. Let's fix the brush on this a bit. Could clear out a little bit of these just for stability. Ooh, wow, that's a very powerful tree tool. There we go, just thin out the canopy a little bit. I do quite like it, the overgrown look of it in the center there. It's perhaps not as necessary. A little bit farther back towards that red line. There we go. I'm pretty pleased with that, actually. That's in like a testing ready kind of state, actually. Hell yeah. Well then. Who wants to test out this map? Because I want to play a battle on this. But first we have to make sure that deployment zones are okay. And the best way to do that, because when you open up a map in the map editor, you're going to get the maximum size you can get. You're going to get 4 versus 4 size, and that's what you're going to kind of want to design around. But single player will shrink the size of it. So it's not always good for single player. It can always sometimes just be good for larger scale combat. So we're going to try a little bit on everything. One sec. First I have to quickly do something with files. But we're going to try it on a bunch of different formats so we can make sure that everything works smoothly, that you can play and enjoy that map on any team size. That's important. So I have to quickly go to the world folder. And you're gonna go to battle, custom, and you're gonna find it in there. Let's see what we got here. Gonna have to quickly change something, so you'll have to bear with me. So you'll have to go to Data World Maps Battle, and you'll find it in there. That's where your scenario folder. And then you'll have to go to Data World Maps Custom, and you'll have to pop it into there. So we're just going to go back. And the neat thing is that it actually automatically updates. So we didn't have the passive Aglon before, but now when we go to the bottom, we should have the passive Aglon. There you go. Right there. So we're going to put 4 Feanor players all on the same team. And Angband can be on the other side. And we'll do Uber funds. We'll just give everybody 1 unit so we can quickly zoom around the battlefield. So you get a knight, you get a knight, and you get a Hydra. Now we'll make them do something slower, maybe? Just so we have more time to explore and look around and try and test the boundaries. So you get no Hydras. Sorry. No Hydras for you. And if it crashes before we can even get onto the deployment zone, then you know we've really fucked up. And so just looking at it there, it actually looks pretty damn good. Although, as the attackers will be able to deploy up on this ginormous hill. Oh, hold on. This isn't even the right map. What the hell? This isn't my passive Aglon map. I disagree, sir. We'll just quickly restart it here then. Just give me a moment, everybody. I was excited. It worked. Yeah, for a second there, I thought we had done it perfectly the first time. Alas, never really works out that way, does it? I won't even worry about the teams. We'll just do 4 teams. Everybody gets 1 unit. Oops. Now, hopefully this is the right map. I don't know what was going on there. That's a little bit strange. Yeah, this is the old passive Aglon map. And not the new and correct one. Let me figure out what's going on there. Going to delete that one for sure. Let's see if we can't fix this. There we go. We'll see if this works. This should hopefully be the proper map now. It's weird. I thought I got rid of the old one, but apparently I did not. Alright. We'll do it with 2 people just to make sure we're working with the right map. If not, I may have to figure that out later. That's weird, because I just deleted the old one. Hopefully our map hasn't disappeared. That would be tragic. No? Okay. Here's the proper map. Too many goddamn folders open. That's part of my problem. It may be that I have two things in there sharing the same name and then it defaults to the other one. So that could be the issue. Let's see if that fixes it. I just renamed it something else. There's the passive Aglon. Okay, we're just going to quickly restart there. All right. I saw two passes of Aglon. I think ours is probably this one. Although I did name it something else just now. But whatever, we'll try this out. Let's put all the Feanor people on one team. Just like we did last time. And put the Angband people on one team. Just like we did last time. This way I don't have to keep doing this. Please work! Fingers crossed. No crashing. No exploding. No being the wrong fucking map. Especially that last one. Yeah, there's a crash. Okay, so we'll have to figure that out later. But now you guys kind of know how, more or less how the new passive Aglon is going to look. And for you, as an added bonus, you know what the old one looked like. That's okay. I'll figure it out. But in any case, it's been nearly an hour and a half of streaming. I think that's plenty. I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. If you guys, I'll do what I did last time. Open the floor to any questions that you may have about the mod, about the channel, about whatever it happens to be. And I'm more than happy to answer that now. Oh, I think part of the issue is all of the is the river potentially that caused it to be so crashy. Let's open up my medieval 2 and I'll figure this out once I go off stream. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about the mod, I'll give you another little bit to ask any questions and then I'm going to sign off for the evening. Yeah, we're getting to that 2-hour mark. Oh god, we are actually at the 2-hour mark. What do you know? 2 hours. Where does the time go? Certainly flies when you're having fun making maps. Chatting about this, that, and the other thing. Oh, I'm a sleepy boy. Well, I suppose we will call it there. Hope you guys have enjoyed this first time. Oh, we do have a question. What's up? What's up, Rex? Little kid in the barn. I'm not answering that. I don't know what he told you, but he's a little shit. In any case, I think in the absence of serious questions, I'll just sign off for the evening. In a second, do I humor you, or is it going to be something else preposterous? I'll humor you. How do you get the background? You have to turn off videos in your preference file. I'm trying to figure out a way to make it off by default, so that you can enjoy the UI that we've made. Well, the WK has made. Oh. But yeah, that's the control through the preference file. You just have to turn your video, there's like videos or something like that under the video section, and you just turn that from that binary from 1 to 0 to turn it off, and then you save. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever comes next. Take care, everybody.